All right, we have to start our conversation right about now. Today we'll be talking about heavy looting amidst rising death profile of Nigeria. Now, recently, I think all through yesterday, all the stories we were reading was centered around the Accountant General alleged 80 billion naira fraud. It's alleged, it's not yet confirmed. Of course, they'll set up a panel as usual. Maybe when it's even proven true, if it is proven true, would hear plea bargain and all of those things. But for now, it's still an allegation. While this story came and it was so big in our hearts, a lot of people were doing the calculations. If this man was to spend £1 million daily, it would have to finish spending this money in about 200 years. So the money will leave him. So is it like this is about generational wealth? And some others said if this was the amount that was disclosed, it means what was actually taken was much more than that. And some are saying if this comes out like this, it can't possibly be the mastermind all by himself. He works with people. The ministers that are involved should be all fingered. And, well, we're going to watch how that drama plays out. While we're still dealing with that, what hurts Nigerians the most is we have a lot of debts on our heads and in our hands right now. The government seems to be borrowing from everywhere and everywhere. We've gone to IFM, International Monetary Fund. We've gone to China. We've gone to the UAE. We're just getting the monies from anywhere we can lay our hands on it. But the issue of debts, every country borrows. The rich, the poor. The debt profile of America is actually like 3 times higher than our GDP in Africa. So it's not peculiar to Nigeria. Borrowing money is not so much of a problem if you're using it for the right things. It's not when you're borrowing money to pay salaries, but you're using money for the monies you're borrowing for infrastructure that will yield revenue. So we have 2 financial experts with us in the house today that will be talking about these issues of our rising debt profile, how we can handle it, and then we'll also talk a little bit about this Accountant General situation. In the midst, I have seated very close to me here, Destiny Iwobi. He's an economist, a financial expert. He's been on TMI numerous times, but this is my first time of interviewing him, so welcome.
Good morning, thank you.
Okay, I have Dr. Saze Iyuar as well in the studio with us. He's an economist as well, a public affairs analyst. My first time interviewing him, our first time interviewing him, but not his first time on the show.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure is ours. Okay, so we are at the first quarter of 2021.
Yeah.
Statistics showed that what we've borrowed was over 30 trillion, what we're owing, if you convert it to Naira, over 30 trillion. Meanwhile, at 2007, Nigeria had cleared their debts under the President Obasanjo administration, and we were all happy. It was worth celebrating. I think that was the Paris account something,
Yeah.
and they waived some part of it.
Yeah.
We paid some. But since that time till now, what we borrowed before has tripled. And some of those debts were as far back as 20 years ago that it was taken. So I'm going to be starting with you, Dr. Saze, on the show today. And the first thing I would ask is our borrowing from China. That's what I want to start with. We've borrowed so much, we've gone to China. Reports have it that when you borrow from China and you're unable to pay back, they seize the assets.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem if I see it. And Nigeria has owed for more than, we have a record of not being able to pay our debts for a long stretch of time. This debts come in a long time. Yes, true. It stays for years before you can pay, before you're asked to pay them back. But do you think we'll be able to pay this debt with our track record and not forfeit these assets we're bringing China? Is it even a wise decision to borrow from China at this time?
Yeah, it's a big worry. Though the explanation that has been given to us by government functionaries is that the loan from China is at very reasonable interest rates. So it makes it a little bit attractive. And you know, China, US has warned most sub-Saharan African countries that China, there is a very strong, significant penetration into the African market. They are offering loans to African countries. And just like you said, the Chinese are not one to play with when you default on your debt. We've seen it in Zimbabwe. They've taken over their electricity commission, which represent NEPA or BEDC, the discos here. They've taken over a port. They are big major ports, because when you are taking the loan, they take collateral. Their collaterals usually are public assets, very essential public assets. So they've taken over. In fact, in some other country, I think in Zambia, they took over their police force and so on. So it's almost like a new colonization, recolonization, if you default. Nigeria's loans, the last time we were told that we are going to pay until, I think it's spread until 2038. You know, so the problem I have with our country is, you know, the country, as I said on one program, is like an onion. You know, you're peeling one, you're having another shell to peel. So what do we really talk about? Is it inflation? But the debt situation, my problem is, the government has argued that the loan is being taken for infrastructure. That's the argument. That's the general argument, specifically for railways. So I'm concerned. Are we just building, you know, it's good. It's true, as you said, there's nothing wrong in taking debt. Every country borrows. As you said, America is the largest debtor in the world. They have about $5 trillion as a loan. Yeah, but government officials have also argued that our GDP to debt ratio is reasonable. Fine. They were saying it's 25%. World Bank has a benchmark of 25% as reasonable for developing economies. But as at 2021, it was 40%, it even increased, which is also fine. In fact, Japan is about 230% debt to GDP ratio. Yeah, but that's not where we should concentrate. It's just like saying, so because your GDP is good, so you can borrow. No, it's just like saying, the clearest example I can give is, you're working in a big company, probably Chevron. So you now say, yes, I'm working in Chevron, so I can collect loan. No, your Chevron is not going to pay your debt. What you're looking at is your revenue. So what's your revenue? How much is your revenue? Not your GDP. GDP is not going to pay your debt. So what's the revenue of the country? Records have it, MBS statistics say between January and May 2021, our revenue, actual revenue was 1.84 trillion naira. Expected was 3.3 trillion. Expected. We made just 1.84. That's just about 50% that we made. Meanwhile, our debt servicing was 1.8 trillion. So 1.84 revenue, 1.8 trillion debt servicing. So that was 98%. So what that tells you is that you're using 98% of every revenue you get to service your debt. You just have 2% left to pay salaries, to pay subsidy, to do capital projects, to do so much. So what it tells you is that we are in a dire situation. So if you are using 98% to service your debt, it means that you would also have a widening fiscal deficit. You still need to borrow because 2% can't take care of yourself. So you borrow again, it keeps widening the debt. Your debt servicing keeps increasing. So that's the problem we have. But when we quickly talk about the China, let me complete, since that's what you specifically asked for.
Yes.
We are building railway lines. I'm looking at, yes, we call it capital project, but what's the economics behind it? There should be an economics. You are building railway line from Canada to Abuja. What's the business traffic along that route? You are building, I think they built a railway line in Abuja, a lightweight railway line. What's the economic sense behind building a railway in Abuja? Almost, I can tell you about 60–70% of Abuja residents are mobile. Beyond that, you have public transport. So what sense does it make? You have Lagos to the east. That's the busiest commercial route that we have. There's no railway line along Lagos to Calabar, Lagos to the east, Imo, the core is till today. So we are having Abuja Kano was the commercial business line along there. It's just for passengers. So most of our projects, as it has always been, have been elephant projects, white elephant projects. So a loan should be able to pay itself. That's the economics behind self-liquidating. So that's why even when Japan have a 230% debt to GDP ratio, they are able to pay. It's self-liquidating. You invest in things that can pay itself. But not, beyond all that, look at these railway tracks. You have Abuja to Kaduna. You just have these railway lines going through bushes, empty lands. So what's the sense behind? Why don't you put a sense behind and say, how many of these railway lines are going to our farm gates that takes our crops? Because that's what we should be talking about. We are not, oil has disappointed us now. Prices have gone up, but subsidy has increased. Our production has increased. So we should look at agriculture. Which of these railway lines are going to the farm gates to take product from the farm? Because that's the major problem. They have good products, but bringing it to the city, that's where the problem is. The roads are bad. Along this railway track, why don't we have export processing zones? We have farmlands, agro-allied industries along, so that these railway lines are serving the purpose of improving productivity, not just going through empty lands, bushes. That will not, how much are the passengers paying? So that's the business sense, the economics behind it, that I think we should also investigate. Okay. But lo and behold, I think our debt servicing ratio is alarming. It's, we have 3.8 trillion now to pay in our 2022 budget. It's about 35% of our revenue. That's projected revenue. Our projected revenue is 10 trillion for the year. But we know that we have never made beyond 6 trillion. Yes. So if we are saying 3.8 trillion, let's even be magnanimous and say we'll make 6 trillion. It means our debt service will be up to 70%. You know, so it's a worry. And I think the economic manager should look not just giving us figures that we are building infrastructure. We should look at the economics behind those infrastructure. The first loan the country took in 1963 was the Tafawa Balewa administration. It was $82.5 million. And he wrote to the World Bank, and the World Bank commended him. It was used to build the Niger dam. Yeah, the Niger dam that is producing electricity for us today. It was at a capacity of 660 megawatts. And we are still using it today. So those are loans that you see the efficiency behind it. Yeah, not just taking loans and brandishing us that it's used for. We are not even talking of the kickbacks that come out from it. So it's a worry.
Even if you're talking about the railways now with the bombing and everything, it's really something. Okay.
Okay. I think I would quickly like to take on Mr. Owobo on this one. I think that should be sometime last month, if I'm not mistaken, or even beyond that. Amidst Zainab is the Minister of Finance and Budget. She came out to say that Nigeria will keep on borrowing, just like he said. Nigeria will keep on borrowing just to service its debts. Now, the big question I want to ask is, even in all of these, you still have the issue of someone stealing as much as 80 billion naira. You have people who are buying presidential nomination expression of interest from for 100 million naira, and then we claim that we don't have money. As an economist, do we have enough resources really to take care of ourselves before the issue of even going out to say we want to go and start borrowing? Do we have enough resources to take care of ourselves as a people?
Yeah, we have enough resources. Our problem is that we lack institutional capability to mobilize and organize the flow of those resources.
Okay.
Every country has resources. The difference between countries is how they are able to mobilize and direct those resources to productive areas.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the problem. If the APC story is a mobilization story, you want to do an election, and so you are able to tell people to collect funds, and then they have to pay 100 million. Yeah. It's a system created to mobilize funds. And guess what happened? Over 30
to mobilize funds for
political purposes.
Okay, for the party or for
no, whatever it is. I just want to give you what mobilization does.
Okay.
If somebody told you that 30 people will be willing to pay 100 million to obtain a form without this saga,
you would think
where would they get that from?
Exactly. Okay.
That's a system. I'm looking at it from a system angle. Okay. I don't want to go into the corruption issues.
All right.
Now that money came out. Over 3 billion was raised within a month, just because of one small system. Now imagine if we could set up our capital market and organize it in a way that the trillions of naira looking around Nigeria, looking for where to make money from, is mobilized so that we invest in big corporations that tend to be... Check Nigeria, we have over 10 million kiosks small stores that are trying to make money.
Yeah.
And so they pay rent. At the end of the year, it's mesmerizing.
Yes.
They make no progress forward 3 steps backward. You get the point?
I do.
Now, the reason why you see tiny kiosks is because Nigerians do not have bigger corporations that can soak investment and become more productive.
Okay.
For example, what a company like Coca-Cola can do with 10 billion and what 10 million stores can do with 1 million, it's not the same.
Okay.
We have what we call leverage. When you are big, you tend to be able to direct funds more effectively. Okay. Than when you are doing 100 million tiny people are trying to pursue tiny pieces. Okay. So what we have, the country has 200 million people in potential. The country has the largest economy in Africa. The country has a lot of things that all we need to do is to set up a system around those many pluses.
Okay.
For extractive industries, we set up a system to generate money from there. For production, manufacturing, we set up systems to be able to allocate funds towards those areas. What we notice now is that our economy is just basically rudimentary. Check the biggest institutions in this country. They are institutions that contribute nothing to a modern economy. I'll give you all of them.
Okay.
1, politics.
Okay.
Politics is not supposed to be an economic venture. Politics is supposed to be an allocation venture. That is ensuring that society is able to run this way. It's a referee's job. The purpose of governance is a referee's job. But governance is not they are not the boxers in the ring. What the government does is to create a level playing field for people in the economy to lock against each other and generate wealth. Okay? Now the government is now doing the boxer's job. The 2 boxers fight, and then the referee is supposed to be watching. Be the eye and watching whether they play by the rules.
Okay.
Now, when society fails, the government enters the ring and joins the boxing ring. Are you getting the point now? And so that's why we always talk about government in this part of the world. Government will do road, government will do light. In developed countries, the role of government is well defined. The government is small in relation to the society. Whereas our government is so big. Employment, government, the biggest employer of labor in Nigeria is government. The biggest mobilization of resources is government. Everything is government. So what happened to one sector, which we call the private sector? The problem with government is that government is not very effective in mobilizing resources for productive purposes. The private sector does a better job of that. But that is exactly the part that is being stifled in the process. Our private sector is very weak and rudimentary. It does not have enough capital to mobilize resources so that society will be rich.
So what could be the reason for that?
6 steps. 6 steps. I said something one time. We have what we call individual progress. We have what we call system progress.
Okay.
The reason why you enjoy football is not because people are playing around. It's because there's a system designed around it. Okay. A system delivers goods far better than individuals. When a system is organized, it's easy for individuals to play inside that system. The problem with Nigeria is a big system that is failing. If you want to understand, as individuals, Nigerians in this country find it difficult to succeed in their country. Only for the same Nigerians to go to developed countries like the US and Canada, the same Nigerians, and excel very well, and even beat the Europeans in their own game, because the system is organized. Now, if you take the best brains and put them in a country that is unorganized, are you getting the point now? They will not succeed because the system is not organized. But if you take the worst human beings and take them to a system that is organized, the system will reform them and make them organized. Are you getting it? So our systems are systemic. And that's why we say we need leaders who think about our problems from the systems angle, not from individual. We're always discussing these issues. We are changing people in the offices. That's what we need. We need to enforce our criminal justice system. Okay. When you commit a crime, you are arrested, you are prosecuted, you go to jail. That whole system, there should not be loophole there. Our accountability system. You take money, there's a process of procurement. We follow it through. If you breach it, you are arrested, prosecuted, you go to jail. That system, from beginning to the end, it's a network of systems. We need to bring a person who knows how to work a system input, output, and see whether we can check the system where it is leaking. We need to also check our capital market system. How do we mobilize funds in this country? There are billions of naira flowing around Nigeria. But you know what there are people are using it for? Drinking beer and doing nonsense. You know, what we need to be doing is we need to have an investment system. Question: how many Nigerians invest in the capital market, for instance? when the system is not organized, how many Nigerians, if I give you 100 million naira, I bet the first thing you would like to want to do is to build a house and buy a car. But in the developed countries, when you hear when they talk about their capital market, the volume of transaction in the US that takes place every 5 minutes is the total volume of transaction in our capital market. The total volume of our transaction in a year is what passes through the New York Stock Exchange every 5 minutes.
Wow.
The billions flew. The deepening, the way the society, even the average pepper seller in the US can invest in the stock market, in the capital market. But here, the only people that invest in the capital market are people who are highly educated, who work in the formal sector. And the formal sector is only just 15% of the entire sector. Nigeria is a big village. In a modern sense, a big village, the criminal justice system is very weak, political system is weak, structural system is weak. No roads, no power stations, nothing, because we are still running Nigeria like a 300 years old society. So like I said, there's money. I don't want to believe. There are countries that are very poor compared to Nigeria when you look at potential. But they are very organized. They are very organized. And that organization allows people to bring their best into example. For example, how can the accountant general of a country how was he able to take 80 billion, let's assume, we have not indicted.
Yes,
we have not alleged. How was, 80 billion cannot be removed from government account once. It must have been done because he has been there for about 6 years.
Yes.
So there are layers and layers. It's systematic. And then this whole thing went undetected. People were writing petitions. Why is government so slow? Try that. Go to a developed country and see 50 naira. In 1 month, your reports will be flying. In 2 months, you'll be arrested. In 1 month, you'll be prosecuted, not 10 years prosecution. Financial crimes, they don't play with it in developed countries. You're prosecuted 10 years, they jail you. And when they jail you, the next person coming will understand that. So like I said, we have a lot of funds, but we lack organization. I think that's the problem.
Okay, they're already telling us our time is up and we're just starting. Okay, if our revenue cannot cover our recurrent expenditure, don't you think there's a crisis looming? I mean, look at Greece. It started small. Sri Lanka now is the latest on the list.
And at some point, even the Greece you talked about, they were going into recession and they were able to bounce back.
Yes, but eventually that didn't play out well. Everything still went down. Sudan, there are countries who've seen that Nigeria seemed to, you already said we have a lot of things we could generate monies from. But don't you think, okay, my question is, how much debt is too much debt? That is actually my question.
Yeah, since you said time is going, our debt, too much debt is at the point where your revenue cannot cover your debts, where your debt is strangling your revenues. Simple. So you can take as much as 50 trillion even, nobody will crucify you. But at the point where your revenue is now being strangled, just like the example I gave about the Chevron worker, who says, just like how Nigeria said GDP and then we are fine, just 40%. So a cleaner in Chevron who is getting 8,000 naira and goes around, I work for Chevron, I feel borrow as much as possible. What's your revenue? So that's where the Nigeria issue is.
Are we at that level now already?
We are there already. Because when your expected revenue is 3 trillion, and you are making 1.84 trillion, and your debt, everything is 1.8, it means it's a circle. It keeps going around. It means to find that extra money, that 2%, which cannot even pay salaries, you have to borrow, and it keeps widening. So very, very straightforward. What we need to do, solutions, you have to save. It's straightforward. Increase your revenue. Why are we borrowing? Because our only source of revenue is oil. It's a mono economy. We are relying on oil. Oil goes down, it's a problem. Production goes down, it's a problem. So we have to increase our revenue, and that goes back to production. We were here about 2 weeks ago. Our center of the talk was production. By the time you produce, you diversify. So even when oil prices go down, it doesn't affect you. Then reduce expenditure. Our expenditure is too high, and the bulk of it is on wastages, corruption. You look at the 2022 budget. We are spending 400 million naira on telecommunications in the Aso Villa. 300 and something billion was budgeted for these same telecommunications last year. We are spending 301 million for presidential feeding, 157 million for the vice president. So the total budget for the Aso Villa, just for recurrent, is 40.2 billion. Our budget for health is 820 billion. Health for the entire nation, 820. Just the president, 40.2 billion. So wastages. We have to cut down wastages. We have to look at the customs. Look at, I said here the last time, customs is losing 9.6 trillion every year, 800 billion every month. Why? Because of sharp practices. You don't have scanners. What's our deficit? Our deficit is just 7 trillion. So it means that 9.6 trillion that is lost every year would cover that 7.6 trillion and there will be extra. So it means we have to cut down wastages. We have to build our infrastructure. Why are we having problems? Power. It's because of power. When we have power, most of the companies that have left Nigeria, ShopRite and so on, they are complaints of power. When you fix power, the informal sector will do well. Most small-scale industries have closed because of power. When you strengthen your informal sector, what happens is that taxes increase. So government now has more revenue, doesn't need to fall back on debt. Because the problem with our debt, let me contextualize very quickly so that we understand. Our debt as at December 2021 is 39.55 trillion. That's like 40 trillion. Divide that by 200 million Nigerians. It means every Nigerian, if we have to pay our debt now, Susu, will be 195,000 naira that every Nigerian has to pay. Statistics say we have 50 million families. So if you divide that 39.55 trillion by 50 million families, each family will pay 800,000 naira. So that just contextualizes the problem that we face now. So very simple. We have to increase revenue. We have to reduce expenditure. We have to empower our infrastructure, power and so on. Then lastly, we have to build institutions so that we have to save more. See our savings. Our sovereign wealth fund is just 2.5 billion. A small country like Kuwait with just 20 million people, their sovereign wealth fund is 750 billion. We are just 2.5 billion naira, so dollars. So I think in all, the Nigerian debt situation is worrying, and corruption is increasing. So we just have to keep hoping.
Okay. Yeah. You know what's going to happen? This discussion it's not going to end because we're going to still keep talking about it. Nigeria will borrow again, and there will be a financial crisis, and there's just so much we have to talk about this rising debt issue. Well, we have another discussion, and the person is already waiting for us via Zoom, and it's about insecurity in Kaduna. So we'll just quickly go join him in a moment, and after that we'll bring the news at 9:30.